as the case may be. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you this morning praising you and worshiping you. We must lift you, we exalt you. We know that you're a good, good Father. We trust you. We ask for more wisdom today. As we open your word, we learn more about you. And as I sit here this morning and pray and think and reflect on yesterday, two things come to mind. Is that our life here on earth is just a whiff of smoke, and I don't want to say almost irrelevant, but almost irrelevant. Number one. And number two, that when we make plans and what we think is going to happen, that's, I don't want to say almost laughable to you, but it's, you tell us to not say I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, but if the Lord is willing, and I realize that I haven't been doing that. I've been trying to figure things out on my own and moving towards my own agenda. And I just seek your wisdom and your forgiveness on those things. Because our life is a whiff of smoke. As we open your word today, just teach us and guide us. And we pray these things in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Love you, dear.
Love you too. $12.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty. Ready?
Yep.
And a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was pregnant and was crying out in birth pains and the agony of giving birth. And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his head 7 diadems. Do you know what that is? Diadems?
I think they're crowns. Let's see.
Yeah, very fun.
Yep.
Because she has 7 stars on her head, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, a crown of 12 stars. Crown of 12.
A jeweled crown or a headband worn as a symbol of sovereignty. So a crown.
Okay, so a great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his heads 7
crowns,
diadems. So does that mean each head had a crown?
Yes.
His tail swept down 1/3 of the stars of heaven and cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she bore her child, he might devour it. she gave birth to a male child, one who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. But her child was caught up to God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God, in which she is to be nourished for 1,260 days.
So is that 4 years? 3.5 years? $1,260 days, 2 years.
It's 2.
Uh,
Oh no, it's more than 2.
3.5 years.
Okay, so one is to rule the nation with a rod of iron, but her child was caught up to God and to his throne. I don't know what that means. Caught up to.
I don't know.
Okay, now war arose in heaven. Michael and his angels fighting against the dragon. And the dragon and his angels fought back, but he was defeated, and there was no longer any place for them in heaven. Okay, so the dragon was defeated. And the great dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. And I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, "Now the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ have come, for the accuser of our brothers has been thrown down, he who accuses them day and night before our God. And they have conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. For they loved not their lives even unto death. Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. But woe to you, O earth and sea, for the devil has come down to you in great wrath, because he knows that his time is short." And when the dragon saw that he had been thrown down to the earth, he pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. But the woman was given the 2 wings of the great eagle, that she might fly from the serpent into the wilderness, to the place where she is to be nourished for a time and times and half a time. The serpent poured water like a river of his mouth after the woman to sweep her away with a flood. But the earth came to the help of the woman. And the earth opened its mouth and swallowed the river that the dragon had poured from his mouth. Then the dragon became furious with the woman and went off to make war on the rest of her offspring, on those who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus. And he stood on the sand of the sea.
Thoughts?
There's a lot
Uh-huh.
that I was thinking about while I was reading it. Well, do you want to start with what you're thinking?
Well,
Because I have to kind of like read verse by verse.
let's go through yours first, because I have what I would consider a fairly controversial theory about this. And I don't want to steer you away from what you want to talk about.
Remember it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so again, the imagery I think is really cool. Like a woman clothed in the sun with the moon under her feet, and her head a crown of 12 stars. So, or on her head a crown of 12 stars. So it's very clear that the dragon is either a symbol of or some other, it's Satan.
Right.
Not just because the way it's behaving, but also because it says here that it was Satan
Right.
and all his um, angels, which are demons, thrown down with him. Um, and it is kind of interesting to think about angels, like bad angels being demons. Like you kind of, I've never really thought of it that way. Like I think of demons and angels, but it is interesting that they're his angels.
Right.
Um, so when you think of demonic influence and all that, and then the angelic influence over the churches, like it is kind of
Mm-hmm.
interesting um, to think of them like on that same level. Like they're the same, but opposite in intentions and
Right.
behaviors. Um, and then where it says, now the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ have come. So, for the accuser of our brothers has been thrown down, who accuses them day and night before our God. So, it's kind of interesting, and it makes me think of our conversation a little bit this morning because we were talking about how when we are able to really focus in and hone in on our intention to do something, exactly what it is we want, that's when we can accomplish it because then we build everything to get there versus being spread thin and doing a bunch of different things and not being too sure what we're even trying to go after.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like if we aim at a target, we're going to hit it. And this is interesting to me because it's saying once that accuser is thrown down, who accuses us night and day, so then we have that clarity to work through the power and authority of Christ fully. There's no distractions. It's just like
Right.
we're not um, being bullied and taunted and
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Um, but then it's like, so rejoice in the heavens, you who dwell in them. But woe to you uh, on the earth and sea, for the devil has come to you with great wrath because he knows that his time is short. And you've heard people say oh, Satan's attacking me because I have a great purpose to fulfill,
Right.
and so it makes Satan want to come after me. That's why I'm under attack. That's why things are hard. And this is kind of like that intensified because Satan's like, man, I don't have much time left to get these people off track. Let me just go after them.
Right.
Sorry if I'm just saying exactly what it says, but
No, you're
it
fine.
helps me to
Rephrase.
yeah, it like processes it in my mind, so I
No, that's fine.
understand it.
No, you're fine.
Um, and then he pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. I mean, I don't really I don't really know what to make of that other than just the spiritual battle. It almost sounds like Jesus is the male child, you would think, but it's kind of weird. Like, is that, I don't really understand that. Um, and then, I mean, God's protection, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
the earth opens its mouth and swallowed the river that the dragon had poured from his mouth. And then the dragon becomes furious with the woman and went off to make war on the rest of her offspring. That's pretty hardcore. I mean, he is coming after Christians. I mean, but then, and it's interesting. Well, I was going to say, but then there is God's protection. I mean, for the woman anyway. And it's interesting how the earth is personified here too. Like the earth opened its mouth. It's not like
Mm-hmm.
it's saying God saved her. It's saying the earth did, and that kind of makes me think of like Native Americans, how they really
Hmm.
um, interact with Mother Nature, and
Right. They see personification of.
yeah, and I don't know. I mean, we read about the rocks crying out to worship
Right.
God, and I think we as Christians kind of glaze over that kind of stuff because it's easier to understand and just say, oh, it's all God. But God created everything.
Right.
And I mean, even just like Beryl, how it sparkles. I mean, it is giving off, it's very lively. Like I mean, it's interesting when you think about, well, and then there's like people that talk about tree hugging and how it is healing. And I know
Touching grass. Right.
it sounds crazy to talk about, but it is interesting how, I mean, they are alive,
Sure.
and everything has its vibration. Um, and then when you go into philosophy, it's like everything, most things are like the smallest part of them is matter, everything else is air.
Right.
When you
Mm-hmm.
study that stuff, like metaphysics and stuff, so it just makes you, I don't know, to me it makes me think about how much do we miss that is actually um really significant.
Right.
So anyways, that's my
So what I think, like when you so I was kind of glancing at the commentary while you were talking,
uh
and it talks about how this is the signs of the, what did it say? Um, where was it? Talks about the beginning of the tribulate. Like they're saying this is the beginning of the tribulation, right? Like this is the sign of the tribulation. I just kind of take
it
my
says that where at the beginning.
it's somewhere in the commentary. I don't know.
Oh, the commentary,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Okay.
So and this is going to be a bit of a more of a cumbersome journey mentally, I think. But if you if you think about your childhood,
Uh-huh.
right? Like stop and actually think about your childhood for a second. And if you kind of just go close your eyes and go, man, I want to think about my childhood. My guess is you're not thinking about it linearly and chronologically.
Right.
At least for me, I tend to mind hop, meaning like I remember the first day I went to school
Uh-huh.
at 3 years old to preschool. I kind of remember what I was wearing. Then I think about throwing sticks in a ditch with my cousin who died around that same time frame. Then I jumped to like the 7th grade. Like when I was 7, we went on a field trip and I almost fell off a cliff. And then from there, I jumped to when I broke my arm when I was 12. And like there's these flashes. And when I think about, oh, when I broke my arm, this happened, then I think about me loaning a hat to one of Jason's friends, and that chronologically doesn't match. It wasn't in the same time frame. It was after that at some point, and then it was like, oh, I remember when I got into a fight with a couple of Jason's friends, and like all this other weird stuff that kind of just gets spun
Yeah.
in a blender, right?
Right.
That's almost what I think the entire book of Revelation is.
Mm-hmm.
I think we look at it chronologic. I think what we want to put to order
Sure.
what it's saying in the order it's being said in, and it's like, okay, this happens, then this happens, then this happens, then this happens,
Mm-hmm.
because we take it as prophecy.
Or, I mean, it is prophecy, or it's.
I don't.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It's not. I don't think it's prophecy. I think it's a revelation. Just like if
Yeah.
I think about my childhood, that's not prophecy, but it's. I can tell you all these stories, and it's a revelation to you of what
Mm-hmm.
happened through my life or
I
whatever the case
totally,
is.
totally, I agree with you about what you're saying because.
So what I think happens
Uh huh.
is this is God revealing things to John.
Uh huh.
So it's like God and John sitting there talking, and God's just downloading
Mm-hmm.
stories, right? So here's where this becomes kind of interesting is it talks about great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and with the moon under her feet. Now, you read the comment and it says, oh, 12 stars. That represents the 12 tribes of Israel. This is Israel. I don't agree with that. What if I had to guess what God is revealing in that is wisdom. So when you go to Proverbs, it talks about how in the beginning there was God and wisdom was with God
Mm-hmm.
and she,
Mm.
okay, right?
Okay.
So I think this is wisdom is the woman,
Okay.
the personification of wisdom. So a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet with a crown of 12 stars. She was pregnant and crying out with birth pains in the agony of giving birth. Well, that's because God's creating the universe. And he's with wisdom as they're creating the universe.
Hmm.
Okay? Another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon. So with 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his head 7 crowns. So that is Satan.
Right.
His tail swept down a third of the stars of heaven. So I think the third of the stars are the fallen angels,
Okay.
which is a third of all the angels that he took with him when.
Does it say in the Bible he took a third of the
Yes.
angels? Oh, okay.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And cast them to earth. So we're looking at this as, if you're looking at this as prophecy, you expect
You
to
know what's
see
interesting about what you're saying
what?
is it's called revelation.
Right.
You're saying it's not a prophecy, it's a
Right.
revelation.
So I
But
think this
yeah,
is
that's
God
really,
revealing almost kind of the history of the universe
huh.
in an instant as part of this.
I could totally,
This is a
that makes,
revelation of the spiritual world that's taken place.
mm-hmm.
Okay. So we're reading this going, well, I'm expecting to see a third of the stars to fall to earth
Yeah.
as part of the prophecy of Revelation. And it's like, this happened since millenniums ago.
Right.
We're,
Huh.
we're not going to have a third of the stars suddenly hitting the ground. This already took place. These stars, in my opinion,
Hmm.
this already took place. This is a, hey, this is what happened 10,000 years ago. I'm just going to reveal it to you.
Wow.
and catch you up to what's happening in the spiritual realm. Because you can't see the spiritual realm. You don't know what's going on in the spiritual realm. So I'm going to catch you up.
Wow.
Okay.
Interesting.
So cast him to earth, and the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she bore her child, the dragon might devour it. So my guess is Satan was jealous of God creating man, and now he's planning and plotting for the fall of Adam.
Uh-huh.
Right? She gave birth to a male child,
Okay.
one who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. You're going to say, well, how does that make sense? And I'm like, well, if Adam is the father of all the nations,
Oh.
and a rod of iron could be that it's of an earthly nature, not because iron comes from the earth, it's an iron ore. But her child was caught up to God and his throne, and the woman fled into the wilderness. Is that when they were put out of the Garden of Eden?
Okay, hold on. I was still trying to catch up
Oh,
processing
my
what you're
mind
saying,
is no, yeah, my
and
mind's like,
I now I'm like a little bit lost. So, okay.
okay,
So, what
verse
is the
5.
iron?
Okay, she gave birth to a male child, one who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron.
Who's
So,
she, first of all?
wisdom.
Okay.
I'm still under that same
Okay.
personification.
All right.
Okay.
Oh yeah, because she had the birth pangs.
Right, because she was with God when God was creating the
Gotcha.
universe.
Okay, so then the rod of iron is
Right.
what?
Is a sign that Adam is supposed to rule the earth, because God told Adam to rule the earth and subdue it.
Mm-hmm. True. Okay.
Okay. But her child was caught up to God and to his throne, and the woman fled into the wilderness. So is it now symbolic of, okay, the Garden of Eden was ruined,
Mm-hmm.
and now mankind wisdom is now operating in the wilderness because it's now separated from God, where she has a place prepared by God, which is she is to be nourished for 1260 days. I don't know what that means. That
Yeah.
okay. Now a war arose in heaven.
Uh-huh.
So this now is the fall of Satan. Michael and his angels fighting against the dragon, fighting against Satan, and the dragon and his angels fought back, but he was defeated, and there was no longer any place for them in heaven. And the great dragon was thrown down, the ancient serpent who is the devil, who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. And he was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. And I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, now the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ have come, for the accusers of our brothers has been thrown down, who accuses them day and night before our God. So that's heaven saying, hey, Satan's been cast out, right? And
Mm-hmm.
they have conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. For they loved not their lives even unto death. Meaning, those demons that went with Satan didn't love their own lives, and they've been condemned to eternal death in hell.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, rejoice, O heavens, you who dwell in them. But woe to you, O earth and sea, for the devil has come down to you in great wrath, because he knows that his time is short.
Hmm.
So now all of a sudden he's on earth. He knows that he's only got a little bit of time to cause as much havoc as he can, right?
Right.
But this is from the creation of the universe. The time of the
Wow.
earth is short. If we believe science that the universe is billions of years old, and 7,000 years since the dawn of man is a pretty short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
It's
if we
interesting
believe,
how you were this morning. You were praying about how our lives are just a whiff
right.
and all that.
So, if we believe science that the universe is a billion years old, and even the Earth is a billion years old, but man has only existed on the Earth as we know Homo sapiens for 10,000 years. That's a real short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's literally, this battle could have happened 10,000 years ago, but that the universe has existed for billions of years.
Mm-hmm.
Both things can be true.
Right.
So, and the dragon saw that he had been thrown down to the earth. He pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. Okay. I can argue that if you live your life according to God's ways and you observe God's wisdom, Satan is always trying to
Pursue you.
bastardize wisdom and make you think you're doing things that are wise when actually
Yeah.
you're doing things that are foolish and
Wow.
deceive you. Okay?
That's pretty.
But the
Hmm.
woman was given 2 wings of the great eagle that she might fly from the serpent into the wilderness to the place that she is to be nourished for a time, and half a time. So that's 3.5 years according to the Jewish calendar. Now, here's the funny thing. It says here, the serpent poured water like a river out of his mouth after the woman to sweep her away with a flood.
Oh.
Okay? So you read the commentary and it talks about, oh, this is Israel and his lies and all those other things. And I'm going,
That's Noah's Ark flood.
that's what I think.
Yeah.
So I think so it talks about
Wow.
in Genesis how God is destroying the world with a flood due to sin.
Yeah.
Okay. You read in Job how Job undergoes all this persecution, and it's not because God did it, it's because God allowed Satan to do it. So if Satan is
I'm like distracted by how blown away I am by your theory.
so if Satan's purpose is to lie, kill, steal, and destroy,
Uh-huh.
then why wouldn't he use a flood to attempt to destroy everything on the earth? And God allows it just like God allowed it for Job. Because for Job, it sure felt catastrophic in nature.
Right. No, but in Genesis, it specifically says it's God that is upset.
Mm-hmm.
I remember he's like really upset,
Mm-hmm.
and he's the one that creates the flood. It's not Satan. So that part, I don't know.
I don't know either. But, okay, hold on. But the earth came to help the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed the river the dragon had poured from its mouth. So the waters receded.
Mm-hmm.
If you read the commentary, it talks about water like a river. The serpent tries to destroy the people of God by lies and false teachings from its mouth, as it had deceived earth or deceived Eve. And I'm like, how do you get that from that? I don't.
Well, I think they're trying to make it into
Right. But what I'm saying is
a metaphor, or not a, I don't
exactly.
know,
And
like
I
an
don't
imagery.
think it's a metaphor.
Yeah.
Then the dragon became furious with the woman and went off to make war with the rest of her offspring, meaning she now is
All of humankind.
all of humankind. On those who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus, and he stood on the sand in the sea, meaning that he's got dominion over the entire earth to make war. That's literally the spiritual battle of earth
Wow.
with God and Satan in a
And
chapter.
I understand this, what your theory is may not be correct. It could be anything. But to me, this feels like the most, I feel very much like this is the most sense I've ever heard made of this. And it almost feels to me, now that you just explained it that way, like it's obvious. Like how would you not get that from reading this? But I've heard so many different things.
Right.
And it's just really, I'm really
I think if you go back and read this, if you go back and read Revelation 12 as like a ironically enough, almost like a recap to a TV show, where it's like on previous episodes, you know, And if you ever watched I don't know, I'm trying to think of a show that I think Suits did that,
Mm-hmm.
where it would show like snippets of like 18 different episodes to get you caught up with what the topic of
Mm-hmm.
that next episode they were going to show you. So it's like, hey, this character, we're reintroducing this character. Here's a 5-second snippet of this conversation. And
Right.
then, and it like kind of it prepares you to understand what's happening in that episode.
Right.
That's what I think Revelation 12 is a spiritual recap.
Can you? That's a okay. So I just opened to Genesis. I'm like, well, can you find where the flood is? It says Noah and the flood.
Okay,
I
what
just.
chapter?
It's page 62, chapter 6, verse 9. I
Okay,
literally that
okay,
just kind of that right there. I mean, I was trying to go to Noah and find it, but I didn't
right.
mean to open that page, so that's kind of cool. Okay. Um, Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight, and the earth was filled with violence. I'm at 11.
Yep, I'm with you. So 100% agree
Okay.
because Satan is now on earth
Right.
and corrupting the earth.
And God saw the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. And God said to Noah, I have determined to make an end of all flesh, for the earth is filled with violence through them. Behold, I will destroy them with the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Make yourself an ark of gopher wood, make rooms in the ark, and cover it inside and out with pitch. This is how you are to make it. The length of the ark 300 cubits, its breadth 50, and its height 30. Make a roof for the ark and finish it to a cubit above, and set the door above the ark on the side. Make it with lower, second, third decks. For behold, I will bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, in which is the breath of life under heaven. Everything that is on earth shall die. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall come into the ark, you, your sons, your wife, your sons and wives with you. And of every living thing of all flesh, you shall bring two of every sort into the ark. Keep them alive with you. They shall be male and female of all the birds. Okay. Also, take with you every sort of food. Noah did this. He did all that God commanded him. Go into the ark, you and all your household, for I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation. How long were they?
In the ark.
Yeah. The flood continued
It
for
rained
40
40 days,
days.
40 nights, and then I want to say it was I want to say it was 3.5 years that they were waiting for the water to
And the
recede.
waters prevailed on the earth 150 days. But so there was,
Right.
I mean, we have to go back and add this up.
So here's my question. So all right, let's play a game for a second.
Okay, but before we play a game, I'm just thinking about how it says God
Right.
flooded it.
I know, but that's the game I
Okay.
want to play.
Okay.
Okay. So is God a good loving God?
Yes.
Okay. Is God a good father?
Mm-hmm.
God doesn't give scorpions and call it eggs. He doesn't give rocks and call it bread. Even to sinners.
Right.
Because Jesus says God only knows how to give good gifts.
Uh-huh.
So, in my business, I tend to be a good guy. I tend to be overly giving, overly generous, and even to my own detriment. Okay. So we, in the context of my business, have talked about if I was going to hire a GM to run the business, I need somebody that's going to be an authoritarian and that's going to bring punishment to people who misbehave, because I'm not good at doing that myself. Right? Remember us having this conversation?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's still in the authority of my domain that if I were to hire Bob, and Bob is a manager who's ruling with an iron fist and punishing people and reprimanding, and it's still in my authority that takes place. But I'm not the one that's doing it, but I am doing it because I'm allowing it. Follow me?
Yeah. I think it might be a bit of a stretch, but
I
yeah.
don't think so. I mean, if God created the universe with a word, he could, with a word, destroy Satan and everything else that has been created.
Well, and he's still
He
in
doesn't,
charge of everything,
right,
always.
right. He doesn't need Noah to build a boat to save things. He can just with a word recreate the earth, recreate all the animals, recreate humanity. He doesn't need to do any of that.
Mm-hmm.
So why do it?
Right. Why?
I, if okay, so if you work for a major corporation and they announce there's going to be layoffs,
Mm-hmm.
the CEO isn't picking up the phone and calling you and going, "Hey, got bad news." Like you're not. That's what.
And I guess the CEO could stop it from happening too if they wanted.
Right.
But God's not telling Satan to do this.
Are you sure?
Well, Satan's not going to obey God.
Sure, he does. Everybody obeys God. If you go to Job, right, and you go to the persecution of Job, I gotta find Job. I think all these things give us glimpses. Man, why can I not find Job? Oh, I'm not going far enough. I think all these things give us revelation into what's happening on the spiritual realm. Because actually, if you look at a timeline, Job takes place
What page is it?
875. Um, okay. So 6 says, "Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them."
Do you want to
No.
finish explaining? Okay.
Let's keep doing this.
Okay.
Now there was a day when the Son of God came to present themselves for the Lord, and Satan also came among them. The Lord said to Satan, "From where have you come?" Satan answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking up and down on it." And the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on earth? A blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil." Then Satan answered the Lord and said, "Does Job fear God for no reason? Have you not put a hedge around him and his house and all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land, but stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to your face." So Satan is telling God. Satan is telling God. Hold on.
Do you want me to just go tell him? We'll come later.
Yeah, I'm texting him. Okay. Okay. So Satan is telling God,
Kona, come here.
but stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to your face. So Satan's tempting God to do something bad to Job.
Uh-huh.
And the Lord says to Satan, behold, all that he has is in your hands. Only against him do not stretch out your hand. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord.
Oh.
So God put a hedge around Job of protection.
Mm-hmm.
God says, all right, I'll tell you what. I'll remove my hedge of protection from Job and let you do what you want to do. I'm not doing it, but it happened with God's authority because he removed the hedge of protection. I'm saying that's essentially the same thing that's happening with the flood.
Could be.
Right.
It's a very, now that you explain that, I mean, that could be. It doesn't say that, so it could be wrong.
Right.
But that could
So
be.
then the second time it happens. So in chapter 2, again, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them to present himself before the Lord. And the Lord said to Satan, from where have you come? Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro on the earth. It was the second time that they're talking amicably. Okay. To and from the earth and from walking up and down on it. And the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil? He still holds fast his integrity, although you incited me against him to destroy him. Now, God didn't do it.
Where are you?
The bottom of page 875.
Okay. So the Lord said to Satan, from where have you come?
Yeah, go past that. Go all like the third line up.
Oh, so
have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil? He still holds fast his integrity, although you incited me against him to destroy him. But God didn't do it. Satan accused him, incited him, picked a fight with him to destroy him for no reason. Destroy him without reason. Then Satan answered the Lord and said, skin for skin, all that a man has, he will give for his life. But stretch out your hand and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse you to your face. And the Lord said to Satan, behold, he is in your hand, only spare his life.
Okay.
So Satan is tempting God, I would say. Not that God can be tempted, but
he's trying to.
Right.
He's trying to be manipulative.
Right.
And God's like, here's how much I'll let you do, and here's what you're not allowed, and Satan has to obey.
Right. So then Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and struck Job with loathsome sores. So initially he wasn't allowed to touch Job himself personally, but he could take everything he had. Now he can affect Job's health, but he can't kill him. So God allows Satan in his presence
to work for all things for good.
So if we jump back to Revelation 12, I think it's a recap. I don't think it's prophecy.
Right.
And I think it's a recap of the history of man, the history of the spiritual universe of.
Well, and here's the thing too. We always kind of attribute gaps in our understanding to, oh, maybe there was some kind of um, error in translation or whatever. So if we do that here, it could be like, maybe what it should say is that God allowed
Right.
Satan to bring this,
Right.
but it doesn't say that, and maybe that's wrong too. Like there's always just some question.
Well, I think that's the argument, right? When people are like, oh, if God, this is one of the sticking points of a lot of atheists or non-believers or whatever. It's like, man, if God's a good God, why does he allow hurricanes to kill people? Or
Uh-huh.
why does he have hurricanes kill people? And it's like, so for a lot of Christians, that's a sticking point. They don't know how to answer that. And my answer to that is God's not causing the hurricane. He's allowing the forces of evil to cause suffering to mankind.
Hmm. And it's for a short time, and it's for establishing his purpose.
It's stubbing your toe. I mean, that sure feel. I mean, think about it. Like when you're a little kid and you get grounded for a day, that feels like
Mm-hmm.
forever. That's like, man, it's one day. Just move on with it.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
That's my
Really
theory. Is
interesting.
I don't think it's prophecy. I think it's a recap. I think it is a, and I think a lot of Revelation is a recap, and we're taking it as, because the part that doesn't make sense to me, like the splinter in my mind is, well, how do you have people that have gone through the tribulation in the throne room with Christ before the tribulation begins?
Yeah.
I don't.
Well, and this kind of makes me, I don't know.
What?
I don't know. I have to,
Oh,
my thought is not,
it is absolute. I mean, this is the kind of this is the kind of stuff people talk about when they're high and they're like, "Whoa, man!" Like, you know what I mean? Like, but I'm saying this is the out of the out
right.
of the box kind of thoughts
Well,
that a
and
lot of people.
this makes me think, so I've had this thought before about the rapture and people dying, and I mean, and mine's not as well formed as your
Right.
thought, so I feel weird to share it, but I've thought about that, like how, I mean, you even see here, it's, there's already people in heaven
Mm-hmm.
celebrating when Satan's gone.
Where?
Okay, so I'm having a hard time
Okay.
explaining this. So
There's beings there. I think those are the angels.
does it say beings, or what does it
It
say?
says Michael's talking about his brothers.
Okay, so other, okay, but anyway, so when you think of like the people with seals on their head and they're up
Mm-hmm.
there and they're down here and it's like it's
Right.
confusing. Um,
It's not
I
confusing
mean,
if you think of it as a recap, though.
I know,
Right.
I get that. But what I'm trying to say is, sorry, I'm frustrated with myself because I can't get out what I'm trying to say. So, like, does the rapture? Well, and maybe I need to wait till we read that part. But I'm like, does it all happen at once? Or maybe it's
If you're
as
not
people.
if you're not bound by time,
Yeah, see, that's what I'm trying to say. Thank you. That's what I'm trying to
right.
say.
But so I guess what I'm saying is the reason why I started with the thinking about your childhood
Uh huh.
is you're not bound by linear time in your mind when
Yeah,
you're,
exactly.
so that's what it's like ish, in my opinion, to experience what it's like being God.
Right, and the way you just described this is all one thing of a bunch of flashes of things happening, and our time is so finite here,
Right.
and we can't. It's really hard for us to wrap our minds around that because it feels like forever. Like we have all these years and years and days and
Mm-hmm.
hours and minutes, and if it really is that fast, that could be like the rapture where people just disappear. It's
If
sped up, fast forward.
right,
Quick.
if the universe is billions of years old,
Uh-huh.
as huh, okay, if the Earth is billions of years old, as science says that it is, the 10,000 years on Earth would feel like an instant. Let me explain what I mean by that. So you've watched movies, or I've watched movies where, and the only thing I can really think of is like The Flash, right? Where,
I never saw that, but you can still use that.
okay, so, but you've seen movies where it's like somebody can pause time and they go do things and they unpause
Oh,
time, right?
uh,
Okay. So if I pick up this mug and I throw it,
uh,
right? It it travels in the air for a quarter of a second. To the Flash, when he goes into his speed up mode, that literally is like floating there forever. So he can pick up my phone, dial a phone number, like move everything out of the way before the mug hits because he's speeding up and slowing down time.
mm-hmm.
Okay. So when the Bible talks about in an instant this happened, sorry. So when the Bible talks about in an instant this happened,
Mm-hmm.
well, if time is all relative, as we've discovered from Albert Einstein,
Uh,
10,000 years sure feels like an instant. So has the rapture been ongoing for the last 10,000 years?
yeah.
Like if time isn't a constant and it's variable, then all these other things kind of phase.
Hmm.
And is that why the Bible refers to it as a time times and a half a time? And we attribute that to mean 3.5 years of the earth, right? But maybe what it's literally saying is a time, which could be a second, and times, which is 2 seconds, and a half a time, so it could be 3.5 seconds. It doesn't, we attribute it to mean a year because we're thinking in terms of our limited understanding of time. But to God, that could be 3.5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
It could be 3.5 centuries.
Mm-hmm.
If you're outside of the limitation of time being a constant, time is X. It is a complete and total variable with whatever it needs or wants to be.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty amazing. Thank you
So
for sharing your.
I don't know that I'm right, but I don't know. I mean, this is literally me discovering this right now, and I'm just kind of going, huh.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's not like it's a. I don't have a.
No, I know.
I don't have a theory or anything to back up a theory. It's just like, huh, what if?
Well, I don't know. I just feel pretty amazed by it. So
I
thank
don't know.
you for that.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.